take the daughter out to lunch this Saturday afternoon. Shut this thing down out here so I can show you it after a few minutes. So basically I had a little hiccup in the giddy up. That was my PC, which I just sang praise about like a week ago in a video about how it was like 11 years old, still running. The old AMD 1055. And it, suffered a nice horrible death. I still haven't pulled it out. It's still down there. Pulled the drives out, and it was able to read the drives, which is still good, by exchanging them with a little SATA adapter. But anyway, what I did was I just bought a new laptop. It's underneath this, so shouldn't be abusing it that way, but got a little dock for it. I'll have to tidy this up a little bit or whatever. I might even just make a little shelf to tuck it in up there, probably, so I don't want any liquids to get to it or whatever. So yeah, I probably should build a little, or just a little, maybe just get a plastic little organizer or something to stick it in there. Stick that laptop up in there, out of sight, out of mind. I programmed it so it'll run with the lid shut, and that's what you see up on the screens now. So almost looks like before, except for this is Windows 11. The 11-year-old AMD did not qualify for the Windows 11 update. Obviously didn't have that security that they want embedded in the chipset. So it looks like Zaz Air and Heating Services connected first again, as he usually is. He slacked big time last time. So what was he saying? I rewatched the Chevy video where the engine blew up. You talking about the one with my daughter? She had ran it out of oil, or the one? Oh, the second Chevy she blew up, not the red Cavalier. You're talking about her Chevy Cruze that blew smoke out as she went down the freeway exit to get to the dealership where we were trading it in. Yeah, that one, the one with the coolant. Yeah, so she's still enjoying her little small, Jeep Cherokee. The only thing we had to do to that was put motor mounts in. Which is something that plagues the shit out of Chrysler. Chrysler vehicles usually need motor mounts before 100,000 miles. Both our minivans had to have all the motor mounts replaced. I had to do all the ball joints on Dakota and my Durango. And then we did her Cherokee. And of course, what gets me views on my HVAC channel? Well, it's when I work on Dodge vehicles, changing motor mounts, or window regulators, and stuff like that, or ball joints. So, and the my dad's Cherokee, or whatever, that one, his 99, that I did the fix for the airflow. I get a comment on that every couple of weeks where somebody said that's what it was, and telling me how they spent like hundreds or even $1,000+ with shops changing all sorts of parts and it still don't blow cold. And well, no airflow, because the flap fell down on the blower inside the the duct. Anyway, so back up and running in here for me. So this is I also have the wireless keyboards all hooked up. I had to reinstall the stuff. So over here you got EZ80A, which is what I've been using lately to make my circuit boards. Get the mouse over there. Oops. I just dragged and moved that. So there's that layout, which I've been starting to print out. Here's the one for the main board. Here's one right here for a little circuit board I'm going to show you guys in a second. That's going to include a simple voltage doubler, which is kind of working. It needs some TLC. I've been tweaking on it. So board I made really wide, like 2.5 millimeter, I think it is, or maybe 3 millimeter wide traces for that. And then I put a little optical isolator on there so I can have pulse width modulation to control the fan speed from the other board. So I just added that into my test board and added the code, just that little bit of code right there, added into there. So what I've got here, you see this stuff all in the last one where I was able to control 2 electronic expansion valve motors, 2 coils plugged in. So this is the IPM or whatever, the inverter power module, whatever you want to call them, that runs, synchronous DC motors. So I made this interface, remember the one that blew up last time? This is a little better one. This one has a relay, and these resistors got a little ridiculous, but I took them off of another inverter board. That's from a Daikin. So on the bottom here, I'm going to show you guys these traces before I put the power to it. Dude, I made these traces fat, and then I covered them up with solder all the way through the relay contacts here from point to point. So what this is AC voltage, 120 volts coming in. Goes through this diode, charges this capacitor on your, I think it's the negative wave or whatever it is. And there's videos you can watch of this. And then it charges that up, and then when you get the other pulse of the sine wave, then it basically puts that with, you know, positive with DC in series with what you just charged up with the other polarity in series, and then basically it's like a charge pump almost. I don't know, it just basically this voltage here is double this voltage, which you're going to see when I turn this fucker on, that it's 120 volts AC is going to be 300 volts DC pretty much until it starts loading it. And I do get sag, I've noticed, but it's probably because this capacitor is just not enough. And you can see the size of these two that are in parallel with this when it's all plugged in. I mean, these are charging up, so it's every other, you know, half of the sine wave is going in series with this little capacitor to charge the big ones, and then when the motor's running, this just isn't enough. So I might be able to pluck this and put a bigger one on it, or I might just keep it. It actually works the way it is. So maybe why even mess with it? This fan pretty much ran even with it under voltage without doing the step up, the 120. That's pretty cool. I'm going to do the same board basically to run the indoor fan. So I might just move things around now that, you know, to perfect it a little bit so I could get a little bigger capacitor in there. I've been taking some high voltage capacitors off of the Daikin boards that somebody gave me. So these are 450 volts rating. And it's hard to find high voltage ones that aren't ginormous, like the size of D batteries and shit. So someone brought me a box of Daikin boards that got changed out because the IGBTs are blown up on it. And it's got some pretty good sized, comparable sized capacitors for me to play with that at high voltage. That's what high voltage DC. So what I have here is, like I said, it goes through AC, goes rectified, charges the capacitor, then this diode on the other half of the sine wave lets it go in series to go through this current limiting resistor to charge this up, and that delays it so I don't get that boom when you turn on the power. And it only takes like a split second, but that's all it takes, at least to not pop circuit board traces, right? And then these resistors, all clumped here, is powering voltage dividing down the high voltage to power the 24 volt DC coil. It seems to be working. So when I flip this on, you're going to hear this beep from high voltage, but after it sits for a while, I do notice a split second delay before this relay clicks, and that's exactly what I want. I want this resistor here right here to charge the capacitor off of 0 volts, which is what it's at now. Let me lock the range here. You want it to get off that 0 volts so you don't have that shitload of current, because the capacitor is almost like a dead short to a circuit, just limited by the wiring and everything. So remember last time I blew that shit up. So let's flip the switch and listen to the relay. That was about a half a second delay. That's good. So that's half a second that capacitor charged up with the current limiting resistor, 470 ohms, I think is what that is. But then once it got it to be enough voltage, think of drop in, drop out, like a potential relay for a start capacitor. It's kind of the same thing. It has to get up to a pretty high voltage before it pulls in the coil. But then the voltage has to drop down quite a bit before it lets go. So right now that relay's passing all the current, bypassing the current limiting resistor. These resistors here, which are ridiculously big, but they do run a little warm, is what's doing a voltage drop so it doesn't blow up the coil in there. And hopefully that relay lasts. Oh, and the fan's on for some reason. So it must be outputting something on my pulse width modulation until I go into that subroutine. There we go. It's coming to a stop. All right, so we got high voltage, 300 volts, like I said, and then pretty much no amps. And so in my subroutine, the subroutines are all just for troubleshooting, for setting up my equipment, and then once it's all installed and running, I'll reprogram it to actually run. Oh, I'm live. People keep coming in and out the door like 20 times a day. Either the daughter or somebody else. Anyway, where was I? I forgot. Distracted. Once this is said and done, it'll be running an actual subroutines to run the equipment. Looking at input when it's running, and then it's gonna like run the expansion valves and the fan. The fan's gonna. So might have to put one more thermistor in here to read temperature off the. See, the bottom half is the gonna be the condenser coil, so I have to read that temperature. So for right now, remember I could go summer winter to select which expansion valve. Now I just have a subroutine for me to do testing on the fan. There it goes. Now this voltage really starts sagging because I said this capacitor is too small. It's the idea is you charge this capacitor and then dump it in series with the next sine wave to charge the next one. Well, this one's small compared to all three of those other ones. It's just not enough. But once the motor gets running, it's kind of back up there a ways, and it's probably not going to run that fast for the size of the coil, amount of coil I'm using versus, the size of the case and everything. This is just not even maybe a 1-ton fixed rotary. Might even be a little smaller than that. Might be like a 10,000 if I remember. So, and once it's all really said and done, it's going to be cooled off it's going to be heating my water heater and then come into this coil. So thermistor is probably going to barely ever ramp up this fan even in the summer, but we'll go ahead and speed it up. And voltage is dropping a little more. Still not so much that it bothers me, but it does sag quite a bit when you really speed this up. There we go, got about half an amp, 180. So I'm almost down to the voltage I would get if I didn't do the voltage doubler, because you get about 170 volts DC off your 120 volt AC rectified, but it doesn't drop until the motor's spinning. But I should be able to just change that first capacitor or parallel in another one, and it probably won't sag like that. Capacitors always drop the voltage somewhat when the equipment's running. Just not like that. But anyway, that sucker's blazing pretty good right now. Drop the duty cycle on it. The voltage is starting to come back up. It's still moving pretty fast. If you ever go walk up to these mini splits, you'll see that those fans hardly ever run to their potential unless it's got a plugged coil or something. But when that cabinet's all on, I mean, in the shrouds around it, it'll be moving quite a bit of air at that point. So, might not even need the capacitor change. I'll probably just, as long as it doesn't use that upper speeds of the motor. I know these motors are, like I said, they can actually pull some power. Like that little 3-ton unit out there, the two motors, when you kick them up, the thing's pulling like over 2 amps. Like maybe it's like 3 amps. Like what the, it's quite a bit. And you'd think a regular non-inverter driven, 3-ton unit don't even pull near that at 230 volts. So it's just because the motors are capable of a speed range over what it ever usually sees in operation. I'm just giving it a command. I guess it probably never usually gets. So anyway, let's see what the messages are. All right, the Pigeon video. Which Pigeon video? I got one a long time ago. I had it before the Kodak cameras would have audio. Early 2000s, where they would just do like a movie clip, it was called, up to a minute long with no sound. and then I had to add sound later in the edit. Boy, I still get hate for that video sometimes. For animal rights people, and I'm not even like doing anything except for showing how disgusting it is that pigeons are trapped underneath a pigeon net that they erected on a roof, tied from parapet to parapet. The net's like, so you got to crawl down like as high as the units are. The net's stretched above the RTUs, so you're like, this high, and the units are like this high, and the net's down there, and they expected you to unzip it and crawl underneath that net to go service like a bunch of units on this church in particular. And it was disgusting when I went in, and there was like, the thing about pigeon nets is they're retarded. They have the holes, and the pigeons, when they land on it, they can worm their bodies through the net and drop in there. But the thing is, to get out, they have to fly out, and they can't fly out through the net. So the net just is like a check valve for pigeons. It just traps pigeons in there, and then they live off the water that's in there, and then they live off of eating each other as each pigeon dies, and the new pigeons are eating, I think, the dead pigeons, and it's fucking nasty. Ugh. So anyway, just a review here. Might leave this thing running for a while. We can turn this beeping thing off. But so I got this is just a 12-volt power adapter, which I'll probably just use it. And so it powers a 12-volt side of the stepper motors, and then the voltage divider or voltage regulator here, adjustable ones, giving me my 5-volt supply for the logic of this and the logic of all this. And then this I just added. I need to secure it probably by putting a strap on that. But this is my pulse width modulation signal coming out of the chip. I'm glad when I added this, I left holes to the unused ports on my processor, and so I was able to go, okay, there's my dedicated pulse width modulation output right there, pin 5. So I just had to solder that on. And then on here you just got a resistor and then the optical input. So this is all isolated from this voltage over here. And then I added some just in series resistors. Power, there's a 15-volt power supply that comes out of this, and then you return a attenuated voltage of that back into it to say what speed to go to. But full 15 volts back in. I think this is only like a 1 to 6 volt speed reference, so I just have some voltage, basically current limiting resistor in series, and then using pulse width modulation, and it probably goes and gets a capacitor, I'm sure, when it comes back in there. So effectively, my pulse width modulation with the current limiting resistors, getting it in that range, and you can see it just gets up to full speed when I went up to my full output. So I have it scaled appropriately now, and she's blazing. And then I just left my circuit board on this little, thing for making them. But this is not too bad of a board. I made and it has high voltage. Like this side's like, almost 300 volts right there, that capacitor. But I just set it for 4 passes and got some a little more isolation routing, as you call it. I keep forgetting that this camera and this is my work phone. I just keep logged in. It just this camera always does widescreen, so hopefully this video hasn't been shit. But anyway, I got some pretty good isolation around the paths this time, and then I sprayed off the flux with some carb cleaner, and I think I got it. So it's not balanced there. So these resistors are too hot to hold your hand on, but they're probably within what they are known to operate at. So I might leave it plugged in. I don't know. Oh, my computer just went to sleep. But so the main thing is I was down for a couple days because of the computer situation, right in the middle of me working on that. Right in the middle of it. So luckily, though, well, I guess it didn't matter because the hard drives weren't the problem. But luckily I was saving my stuff into the cloud on my OneDrive, and so as soon as I logged in with the new computer, those files are there. So brand new computer. Oh, and in case this is another one of those best bang for the buck type of buys. Top of the line i7s, $2,000, $2,500, whatever. If you're willing to get one that's just a little older, the price drops down below $1,000. Or if you get one of these AMDs, which is what this is, the thing is, this is my second AMD Ryzen 5 laptop. I have another one, that I carry around with me. That's my personal one, and it's a Ryzen 5. So that's what this is, which is it makes it a 12 core, 6 with hyperthreading, I believe, and it's got the built-in AMD Radeon graphics. So it's got can do okay. It's got 2 USB-Cs, so one's got the charger in it, and the other one's going to this dock. And then all that shit's in there. Keeps going to sleep. Like I said, I need to put this up on something. It's just asking for it sitting there, but yep. So pretty cool. It's everything's it worked. I etched the board with this machine, you know, using the one USB-C connection going into this, bridging all these USB ports, all running through that at once. The printer's on there. I just found an old hub of mine and plugged it in. I don't know if it's going to give me any issues. I don't have the 5-volt power supply for it. I don't know where it went. We're supposed to beef it up so when you plug in some devices that steal a lot of 5 volts, you won't have issues. And I think I already had one issue with the programmer on it. But there is 3 USBs on here. The one here, I could probably take this one, which is my keyboard, and probably move it over to the hub because I don't need that power like that. And put the programmer, home run it right into the computer maybe or something. But yeah, pretty cool setup. But yeah, it's a Ryzen 5. I'm trying to show you guys. So it's only got 8 gigs of RAM, which is a little less than that's left for you. It's just like my other one, but it's enough for what I do. So it shows 6 cores, 12 logical processors. I think it's pretty much about the same one that I have in my other ones. I just bought this one. It's a 2-in-1. It will flip around, so you can use it as a tablet, which I'm not. But it was like $800. So I mean, $800, and you got a pretty decent amount of power, decent graphics. It's running 3 screens if you count that one when it's open. So I set it up for 3 screens. It isn't laggy. Stuff opens and closes pretty fast. Best bang for the buck, really. And so I have a i7 for work, which might be cluttered a little bit with all the crap IT put in it, but my other one, like similar to this one that I've been using, it boots up faster and is just as responsive, if not a little better, it being a Ryzen 5 compared to that i7. So I mean, I don't know, say what you will. You might have to do different type of tests to find out advantages and disadvantages from the one to the other, but as far as just opening the browser and opening things, it's right on par with an i7. So can't go wrong with $800. So I recommend them. The only thing is, as soon as I got logged in, by the way, my account, and then I just said, oh yeah, back up to my other saved Ryzen settings, and it did. It put the same apps and everything in here. OneDrive setup, you know, same. Put my Office 365 account stuff in there. After that, dude, there was like 6, 7, 8 Dell services and 3 antivirus, McAfee's antivirus. Of course, the real McAfee's dead, so it's not even his company anymore. So screw that. I uninstalled every bit of that. All that stuff. I don't need any Dell add-ons. The Windows stuff handles everything. So it's so stupid how HP and Dell and whatnot put in all these things that start up automatically, and you'll see them in the startup. For those of you that don't know how that works, but you just go over here to startup and you can see what's starting up. And you'll see now there's no Dell, nothing in there, it's just the Microsoft stuff. My Logitech, I let it go ahead and install that. The Radeon thing, may or may not need that. And the sound terminal thing, a couple stuff, things like that. But other than that, doesn't need. I don't need this QNAP thing. In fact, I'm not on since I'm using two separate Wi-Fi routers, and I'm not on the primary one. I can't even connect to that from down here. So I'll disable that. So next time, oops, did it disable? Yeah, accidentally hit enable. So the next time this computer starts, that QNAP finder won't be running. For those of you that want to know how to take things out of startup, that's how you do it. But yep, that's it. So check any more comments before I go. So what you saying? Your dad picked up a 06 6-liter diesel. Oh, okay, the old Ford 6 liters. I guess you could bulletproof those and still make those good. So one cool channel for diesels. He's kind of a buddy with Cletus McFarland. Is that JH Diesel guy? I don't watch every video he has, but I watch some of them. He's got some pretty cool stuff, tearing it up. So anyway, I gotta take the daughter to lunch. Sleep button. Everything, like I said, everything's working good. These monitors eventually turn off, but anyway, that's it. So we'll let this keep testing. I could probably be able to make a bracket and put all these boards on it inside this machine. I need to make another output going to an output relay that's going to switch on and off the contactor for this. Actually, I don't need this is a pretty small thing. I just need one big relay. So thought I had one in here. I like stealing relays off of old shit. Saves you a lot of money. But like this relay right here is probably enough of rating to run that rotary. So I'll probably maybe make another power board with that footprint. And that's why I had all these relays off. I was looking them up, and these ones didn't cross-reference, but this one did. So I was able to get this footprint and import it into that easy EDA software, and then I lay it in there. It actually puts the pins in the right spot and everything. You just start dropping parts on the screen. So that's this software. Sitting right here. There's that. I keep forgetting this camera sucks. It seems like it's just in widescreen. I got this almost up to the page, but here's my relay, that relay right there pretty much, and then you just drop your parts in there, and then on the next screen you can move them where you want actually on the board, and then you can either manually route or auto route. I actually let it auto route. I do all the bottom as much as possible, and then I modify it after I let it auto route to how I like it. Widen the traces that were the power traces. Boom. But yeah, this is my charge pump. This resistor is backwards, by the way. There was 2 different schematics on the internet, and I couldn't remember what I did with it, and it had it backwards, man, and it charged up the capacitor in reverse and blew it up. Let the smoke out. Too bad I didn't have a camera in here. You know what? I am going to add one of my security cameras in here eventually. I'll probably just put it right up there, maybe, looking down for security. Put it to my DVR. But the cool thing is, if anything exciting happens in here, I can always pull it off the DVR and have at least a video. There won't be no sound, but have a video recording of it. That'd be kind of funny. So anyway, daughter's been waiting. This video's probably gone on too long. So Juan says he misses me in the field. Yeah, I'm not going out as much since I'm like helping people from my desk mostly, but I do go out. I'm going to see some cool stuff, but we'll see. But you came in right at the end of the video, so you'll have to rewind after it replays. But yeah, I really got to get going. It's what time is it? Daughter's in there waiting. It's almost 2 o'clock, so I haven't eaten nothing today. Been out here since I got up. So anyway, with that, guys, we'll catch you later. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.